The death of the data center middleman. The x86 processor has been officially demoted to a background housekeeping utility. For decades, every piece of data moving from a hard drive to a screen had to ask the CPU for permission. But with the launch of NVIDIA's Rubin architecture, that chain of command is broken. We are witnessing the first hardware cycle, where the GPU does not just accelerate the work, it owns the entire data path. By moving to a GPU-initiated direct storage model, NVIDIA has effectively stripped Intel and AMD of their last remaining leverage in the AI factory. This is not just a speed upgrade. It is a fundamental coup of the data center power structure. This structural shift starts with a mechanism called GIDs. Bypassing the von Neumann bottleneck, traditional computing is built on a bottleneck. The CPU acts as a traffic cop, pulling data from storage into system memory before finally handing it over to the GPU. This too-hot process creates a massive latency tax that modern agentic AI simply cannot afford to pay. The new GIDS architecture allows the Rubin GPU to issue its own read commands directly to the NVMe storage array. Think of it like a chef who no longer waits for a waiter to bring ingredients from the pantry, but instead reaches through the wall to grab them himself. By removing the CPU and DRAM from the loop, NVIDIA claims a 10 times reduction in inference latency. But the real strategy is not just about speed, it is about total memory domination through a new tier called high bandwidth flash. The 16 times memory leap. Capacity has always been the Achilles heel of the GPU. High bandwidth memory is fast, but it is expensive and physically limited. NVIDIA is solving this by integrating high bandwidth flash directly into the Rubin package. In the 2026 Rubin configuration, GIDS allows the GPU to treat massive pools of NAND flash as if they were local memory. This creates a 16-fold increase in effective capacity, jumping from 192 gigabytes to over 3 terabytes per module. For the first time, a single GPU can hold a trillion parameter model in its own local context. This move turns NVIDIA into more than just a chip designer. They are now the primary architect of the entire storage stack, leaving legacy storage vendors to either follow the GIDS standard or face irrelevance. However, this level of integration comes with a heavy physical price: the power and legacy wall. As the GPU takes over the role of the system controller, it becomes a power vacuum. Running tens of thousands of parallel threads to manage storage I/O pushes the Rubin platform into unprecedented thermal territory. This is why every major cloud provider from AWS to Microsoft is being forced to rip out air cooling for liquid plates in 2026. Furthermore, the GIDS shift requires a total rewrite of the Linux kernel storage drivers. Critics argue that this creates a proprietary walled garden, where only NVIDIA-optimized software can run efficiently. If you are building on AMD or Intel hardware, you are still paying the CPU latency tax, while NVIDIA users are operating on a direct highway. This fragmentation is the exact moat Jensen Huang has been building for a decade. It forces a choice between legacy flexibility and modern survival. The signal under the noise. The transition to a GPU-initiated architecture signals the final transformation of the data center into a single, massive system on a fabric. By using GIDS to bypass the CPU and HBF to explode memory capacity, NVIDIA has effectively turned the rack itself into the unit of compute. This renders the old debate about GPU versus CPU irrelevant because, in the Rubin era, the CPU is just an auxiliary processor for basic boot tasks. For investors and operators, the takeaway is clear. The value in the data center has shifted entirely from general-purpose logic to specialized data orchestration. As we look toward the 2027 Rubin Ultra cycle, the indicator to watch is no longer chip sales, but the adoption rate of the NVIDIA STX storage reference design. If the industry standardizes on GIDS, the age of the CPU-centric server is over. Watch for the first production benchmarks of the NVL72 racks hitting cloud providers this July. Subscribe for more.